Before we begin our conversation, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture. I'm currently on the land of the Camaragal people and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I further acknowledge the traditional owners of the country on which you are and pay respects to their elders past, present and future. It is a pleasure to welcome you this evening to Souvenir of Time, Vanessa Berry and Sarah Goffman in conversation. My name is Katrina Liberio and I'm the Assistant Curator of the Art Collection at the Chau Museum and the Curator of Sarah Goffman's exhibition Applied Arts. Artist Sarah Goffman and writer Vanessa Berry share a love of incidental, discarded or trash objects and a passion for collecting. Both live and work surrounded by their collections, and in this conversation, they will discuss the material and imaginative possibilities of the objects that inspire their creative practices. Sarah and Vanessa will discuss their relationships with objects and their new works, Sarah's upcoming exhibition, Applied Arts in the Penelope Gallery, an installation of intricate museum replicas created from waste materials, and Vanessa's new essay collection, Gentle and Fierce, a memoir themed around figures and representation of animals. Dr. Vanessa Berry is a writer and artist who works with history, memory and archives. She's a lecturer in creative writing at the Department of English at the University of Sydney and the author of Gentle and Fierce and Mirror Sydney, an Atlas of Reflections. Dr. Sarah Goffman is a contemporary artist who has been exhibiting mixed media installations since 1994. She completed a Diploma of Arts in Photography and a Bachelor of Fine Arts at the National Art School, and in 2018 was awarded a Doctor of Creative Arts from the University of Wollongong. Tonight's conversation is available in Zoom auto captioning, but as we are all now aware, sometimes it's not a completely accurate reflection of what we're all saying. If you have any problems this evening, please add a comment to the chat function and our moderator will do their best to resolve it. We welcome questions for Sarah and Vanessa at the end of the conversation, so please add them in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Over to you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm joining you from Gadigal land in my writing room. What room are you in, Sarah?
My living room, so I can do a little span around. I'm on a swivel chair. So I've got a desk in here where I work as well. Lots of.
Is that your main workspace?
I have a garage out the back, and yeah, so I alternate this. Yeah.
Well, I won't ask for a full house tour. I think you've got plenty of interesting things in that room, which we're going to talk a bit about tonight. And one of the ways I was thinking of starting our conversation was reflecting on how, well, the fact that everybody has a relationship to objects, whether they think they do or not. So some people think about them a lot, some people not at all, but everybody has one. But I think when you're an artist who is object focused in whatever way, or a writer, you have a very particular relationship to objects, or it's a lot more complex, or it's something that you think about often and you revise as you continue to work. I mean, one of the things for me with my relationship to objects is I love having them all around me, and I find that quite inspiring and a generative thing for me to take into my writing, whether or not I'm actually writing about the objects or not. I might not be, and usually maybe I'm writing about something else. Are you similar? Do you like having them around you?
Yeah, because out of sight is out of mind, and I don't know I have it unless I can see it. So I really hate putting things into boxes, then they disappear. I have to have them in the evidence. And they're also, yeah, it's a three-dimensional world, and I want those dimensions to play off of each other, because they do. You've collected something because it has some resonance with you, and I want to keep it. And I want to see it, and I want to play with it, but I do struggle because I can't have everything. And so, I mean, you've got fantastic piles behind you, really admirable.
Thanks, Sarah. Fantastic Piles could be a good name for something. I wrote an essay called The Writer's Clutter, which was very satisfying. And that essay that I wrote, it's in the Sydney Review of Books, it was partly because, and I think this is one of the differences between writers' workspaces and artists' workspaces in this kind of stereotypical understanding of them, is artists are more allowed to be messy. Writers, usually when you see a writer's workspace, it's quite neat. But I've always worked amongst chaos, and although there are challenges with that, I find it a very generative thing, and I feel quite comfortable being around a lot of things. My fantastic piles. Actually, there's a Sarah Goffman artwork behind me that you might see if you move your eyes around the screen. Can you see it?
Scrutinizing.
I'll point it out so we don't try everyone's patience. The camera.
Oh, I am a camera. So that's a great segue to what we do with our eyes. And you wrote about it in your book. I know I read that, the Sylvia Plath chapter, and it struck me so much because I think because we do want to possess, well, I do. And so looking at something and taking it inside me is, if it's a landscape, it's a view. So even when I was a child, I would struggle because I wanted to contain it and possess it. So it's quite greedy. But like my dad would take photos and I'd do a drawing maybe, but it's still that desire to have something that's outside of ourselves and take it inside.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interior and exterior relationships going on when we think about how we relate to objects and thinking about collecting. What's the last thing, the most recent thing you've brought home to add to the collection? We're a bit constrained at the moment. There's no op shops open. Cigarette paper?
No, it's it's actually After Eight dinner mints. And it came on the top of the box of mints. And I mean, it's the green that I adore. You know, I mean, I do collect end papers from the cigarettes. I've got, let me see, there's a big box of them I've got right here. And there's just thousands of tally-ho, but also unbelievably, Rizzler makes the same end, uses the same end papers in their rolling papers. Because I'm a smoker, I notice these things. So I do collect paper, and yeah, so it's evidence of my consumption as well, but it's something that I don't know why they put it in there, but it's the same green, and I think that that's something special.
There must be a good reason for it, I'm sure, why they put it in, but I don't know it either. Yeah, and just looking at that plastic container with all the end papers in it, it's like a simple transformation, but it certainly transforms the object that you might encounter in the paper sleeve or you might see discarded somewhere. But immediately it starts to change when you see so many of them together.
Photograph it there. Oh, there we are. There's tons of them. I have actually interred some of them into a Perspex, custom-made Perspex box. Yeah, and so when I die, there'll be a lot more, and they might be my cause of death. But I won't be here to notice. Anyway, sorry.
I also collect paper, but the paper that I collect, well, there's a few different kinds of papers. There's my journals, which are papers with texts on them, but there's also these tins, which I use as my filing system, and I got one out so I could show it. So there's where the camera is on my shelf behind me. There's also all these tins, and these tins are what stores my paper ephemera. So I got one out earlier So I
Lovely.
didn't risk an avalanche back there live. So in these tins, I keep the scraps of paper, which, sometimes just things I find or things people give me. So I'll just hold it up with the lid off. So this is the kind of bits and pieces that you collect, but they become, so thinking about the name of our session, Souvenir of Time, they become this kind of strata of a particular time of my life. And I vary sometimes I'm organized and sometimes I have these kind of spurts of organization, but other times I just kind of put things in there, and then to find something I have to go through quite a lot of stuff, but I like that because I find things and there's serendipitous kind of connections that are made between the objects. So we both have an affection for paper in perhaps slightly different ways.
But do you do like a tin a year, or is it a combination of things goes into certain tins and not others?
I have an active tin, and I'll put things in as I tidy up my desk, which you can't quite see from my where my computer is. It's quite a big computer and I can't move it. I don't have your mobility on the iPad there, but if you could imagine a desk just to the side there, it's a big wooden desk, and with papers stacked up on both sides. And sometimes when the papers mound up, I'll go through them and I'll whittle out some of the papers and put them away in the tins. So I think of all this material as the material that I use for my writing in some way, because all of my writing is draws on my memory, and it might be personal memories, or it might be world memories, or the memories that are held within objects. I mean, I wonder whether in your work and when you're using objects, I feel like your focus is more on the material. Am I right?
Well, that's definitely, because that's sort of what I collect is mainly. I mean, I used to collect all the little ephemera, small bits and, precious things on the streets. And I should walk over to my printer's boxes because all these tiny, small things that go in there. I mean, they do. I can see my in here. There's can you see them? The printer's boxes. So
if you can hold the iPad a bit more still, then we can get a better
all right.
I think.
Because I can't see. Does that give you a?
That's good. That's very good.
All right, so this is based on my parents' collection of small things, also in a printer's box. And I realized that I've made renditions of things that they had in these boxes. I've collected and been obsessed by because they loved Orientalism, and they used to have a little ivory perforated carved box from India, and little tiny things. I know we were talking about miniatures. Maybe if I sit here behind there, then like everything informs me, like whether it's garbage, the packaging of the candy bar that I've consumed, or, found objects from, there's a shelf with, nature tables. I mean, I love shelves of everything, but it does make the art. I can't talk because I'm just excited.
It's the plenitude.
It is, and it's the energy between the things. So with my collection at home, I've got a plastic thing inside a clay thing with a paper thing, and so I look at those. I need to see those materials together, and they invite each other to come together as a small ikebana sort of, flourish. So I'm obsessed with just what there is on the planet. Like, the Powerhouse Museum is fantastic. Op shops are like the Powerhouse Museum, but you can touch things. And I want to, like, I love going to a car boot sale. I don't want to buy, or I do want to acquire things, yes, but I just like to look at what is made and what we throw out. That tells a story. And then the whole problem of, single-use plastics and garbage generated by all this industry and cargo culture. Yeah, like it's, I'm possessed by possessions.
Possessed by possessions. I love it. Yeah, I've been thinking about op shopping, which of course has been a passion of mine for a very long time. Almost, as soon as I could shop, it was a passion of mine. And I'm similar in that I'll go there. I mean, I've had periods of a lot of acquisition when I was younger, but now I tend to do it more as it's something that if I'm at home and I'm working or doing some writing and then I feel a bit deflated or flat, go to the op shop, just browse around exactly as you say, have a look at all these objects that relate to each other. And there's something energizing about it. And I'm like you, pretty much any object is fascinating to me. I think, well, this exists and like this was made or this was formed in some way. How and why and what's its life been, what's its life going to be. So you're thinking about time, you're encountering an object in a moment perhaps, but there's all this time before and all this time after, and then all these kind of parallel times too. So it very quickly starts to expand. Well, in my book, Gentle and Fierce, so it is a book about animals, but it does have particular animal objects that I write about, because one of the things I wanted to think about was what kind of connections can someone like me who lives in an urban environment have to environment and ecology and environmental concerns, even if perhaps I'm sitting in this room surrounded by things as you see me here. And I was thinking about how objects like figurines can be a connection to environmental thinking or thinking about animals and having a sense of empathy for animals. I took one of the objects I wrote about out from its home in the next room. I'll just reach for it. So one of the objects I wrote about in Gentle and Fierce was this figurine of Lassie, or a Lassie-like dog. I don't think it's actually a Lassie sanctioned